everyone, and welcome to the Hope Report, your light in the darkness, brought to you by the Lindell Recovery Network. I am Jason Perry.
I'm Melissa Huray. We're on to our second interview of the day here at NRB 2023. I'm really excited about this lady. We have Susan Neal with us. She's an RN. She is an expert in nutrition, and this is a passion of mine. After getting sober 20 years ago, I had just a horrible upbringing with binge eating, latchkey kid, eating garbage processed food all the time, wrecked my metabolism. And I couldn't, until I got sober, get into a balanced way of eating. So I'm really excited to talk to you today as it relates to people with addictions and other stuff too. But welcome to the show, Susan. Tell us about these amazing books that you've written.
Okay, my bestseller is called 7 Steps to Get Off Sugar and Carbohydrates. And if this was easy to do, we would all do it.
Yeah, right.
It's not. It's very difficult. So in this book, I try and tell you how to tap into God's power, because I couldn't have made these changes without his power helping me to put into effect new lifestyle changes and new ways to eat.
I would say like carbohydrates, for me as a recovering addict, well, I'm recovered, praise Jesus, but is that it was like drug-like to me. So when I start to eat, and I'm not, I guess I think carbs can maybe, healthy carbs, we can talk about that. We can talk about slow burning carbs. But when I start to eat them, I tend to want to binge on them. So do you have balance with regard to carbs? Or maybe you can talk about good versus bad and how people approach this. Is it an all or nothing thing, or should we keep some in our life?
So I believe in eating God's food. So if you look at your plate and the vegetables came out of the garden or the meat came off of the ranch, go ahead and eat it. Or, fish and seafood as well. But so those are, you can have great carbohydrates. God made 100 different vegetables. We eat like probably less than 10 of them, right?
Yeah.
Let's try the other 90. So that's good carbs. Bad carbs is when the food manufacturers strip the God-given nutrients, such as wheat or rice, of their nutrients, and they make white rice or they make white flour. So those processed foods are bad.
Well, that's when it says enriched, and it makes you think it's something good, right?
Yeah, they had to add vitamins to it.
Yeah.
So I think one of the challenges that many people have is the health industry getting all on the same page, right? You have carnivore versus vegan,
keto,
Makes your head
keto.
spin.
Like every other day, there's a conflicting study that comes out, and everyone's totally confused and in confusion, chaos, and nobody knows what to do. That's what you see time and time again. You got people coming out there saying red meat's horrible. Well, then other people saying grass-fed beef is amazing. And you got people coming out like the government takes all this money and they make this food pyramid, right? I mean, we could just talk. We could spend the whole hour talking about what they did to eggs, right? Eggs are terrible.
Vilified
Egg whites
eggs.
are great. Now we know that egg yolks are the mega vitamins.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, who has credibility anymore?
Yeah.
God does.
Yeah. Praise the
So
Lord.
if God, planted that food in the Garden of Eden for us to eat, because that's what he does. That's what I explain to kids in Eat God's Food, because I go back to the Garden of Eden and that God planted our garden and he gave us all these, nutrients to eat: vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, and then after the flood, meat and whole grains. If you're going to eat a grain, have it be whole grain, not a refined grain. So I say, just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Just eat God's foods and not the food manufacturers.
Right. So my wife is celiac.
I have a book on that as well.
Right. And we're actually, we have a farm. We have a 44-acre farm, and we're actually considering trying to go back to the old grains to see if she could have before, the grains in Jesus's time.
Einkorn.
Yeah.
Einkorn wheat.
Go ahead. So let's talk about that if we could.
Yeah, so einkorn wheat. Yes, I have tried it because I did get the ancient grain from way back then. And it's still, I'm gluten sensitive, and so it still affected me negatively. But I have been to European countries and I have been able to eat their wheat products and not have issues.
Oh,
Can you explain that? Like what they're doing different?
Yes.
Right? Because I know, I've heard people who have, particularly fitness people, gurus, they go over to Europe and they eat whatever they want. They don't work out. They feel great. They come back, they eat U.S. food, and they feel
is it
terrible.
the portion size? Is that part of it?
No, it's in the 1950s and 60s, wheat was hybridized. So Norman Borlaug got a Nobel Prize for hybridizing wheat. So it went from 4 feet tall, ancient waves of grain to 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. It is drought resistant. It is prolific. It can feed the world. Unfortunately, the gluten molecule is so large now that most humans cannot digest it. And that is why celiac disease has increased by 400% in the past 60 years.
I agree with that. My wife's hair was falling out. Her nails were brittle. I mean, she has a really hard time with it. So we are a gluten-free household. But we're trying to see, because again, she was dairy, and now we do raw dairy in our house because we have our own dairy cows, and she has no issues. Right. And we have raw dairy, raw cheese. I mean, it's just, we feel so much better. Like I hate even going to restaurants now because I know I'm not getting anywhere near the goodness of my own home.
You're right. And like my daughter, she can't eat eggs from a grocery store. They go right through her, but we have our own chickens. And so they're perfectly fed. She eats 2 eggs every morning and it does nothing to her.
And they're so colorful. Well, and they're so colorful, the free range. Go ahead, Melissa.
No, I love this conversation, and I'm the odd man out. I don't have a farm. I don't have chickens. I do my best to go to farmers markets and try to. I am gluten free. I have hypothyroid, and so it's just very aggravating to my thyroid.
It is. It's related.
Yes,
it is.
So I try to eat as clean as possible. But I was sharing with you about people with addictions, and so much with addiction. We are not taking care of our body. We are, slowly killing ourselves, however you want to look at it, with using a drug and all the behaviors that go along with it. So most addicts are notoriously poor with diet and exercise and things like that. And so adopting a healthy lifestyle really turns us into actually taking care of the body temple and being able to cherish this body God has given us. So it's totally opposite of how we are in an addiction where we're destroying ourselves. So talk about just kind of the power that, what happens when you start feeding yourself what God has created, these foods made in nature, how transformative it can be.
It can be, but it's really, really hard. And you have to figure out why you're eating in a manner that you don't want to. Because most people are eating and they don't want to binge. They don't want to consume too much alcohol. And I read an article, a study that found that 99.9% of alcoholics have an overgrowth of candida. Candida is a yeast that's normally in our gastrointestinal tracts. God gave us yeast. God gave us probiotics. They're balanced. They're in our microbiome. But when we take antibiotics, it strips it. And what's left is the candida. That's what I had. And it was like a monster in my gut. I could not stop myself from, consuming items I did not want to consume. So it could be
a craving and then a compulsion to keep eating.
Yes. So if your audience wants to figure out if they might have an overgrowth of candida, they can go to candiquiz.com. CANDI quiz.com. And you can just check all the different symptoms that you have, like brain fog or lethargy, or that you have that might relate to that. And the other reason why is that, it might be an absolute addiction, because the same brain receptors in the brain that opioid drugs, where you release the dopamine for opioid drugs, they had somebody who was a sugar addict and somebody who was, cocaine addict. And in the brain, the MRI imaging, the same brain receptors are going off.
Yeah, right.
So if we figure out the root cause, and we take probiotics, we start eating better, we get our microbiome in better shape, it's easier to make the change. And I also, if it's an addiction, I believe in using the word of God. I put, don't drink too much wine, for many evils lie along that path. Be filled instead with the Holy Spirit and controlled by him. Put that on your refrigerator, put that on your pantry, speak it out loud. Have a prayer partner, accountability partner, to have some other things coming in instead of, oh, I'm going to decrease, I'm going to go on a diet. Yeah. Diets don't work.
Right. Yeah, they're non-sustainable.
So I read a book recently, Genius Foods, where he really goes into, where he goes into statins and how cholesterol has been blamed for so many things. And our brain feeds on cholesterol. And we have, my mother-in-law has Parkinson's. His mom, the author, had Parkinson's plus, which is Parkinson's plus dementia, Alzheimer's actually. And what we're finding is that's going through the roof because everyone's on statins, or not everyone, I'm not, but a lot of people are on statins, and we just, you turned 45, here's your statins, right? Which destroys the cholesterol in your body, and then you stop eating cholesterol and your brain starves. Yeah. Right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure you can talk about it more in depth than I can.
Yes. So whomever decides that that cholesterol is the culprit. Well, it's not the culprit, right? Because it's
at the scene, but it's not the culprit.
What is the culprit is sugar.
Yep.
So sugar is what goes inside of our arteries in our veins, from the refined carbohydrates, the sugar that we eat, and that's what sticks in there. Okay, so cholesterol is a protective for our body. So what the cholesterol goes and it covers it up, and it makes it to where it's not sharp and everything, and so it's protecting us. So if we were to consume less sugar, right, instead of decreasing our cholesterol, right, I would never take statin drug.
There's so many horrible side effects to statins, like muscle wasting and all of this. And we need to not just look at this they pick this arbitrary number of 200 is the number, instead of looking at cholesterol patterning. Is it the large fluffy particles, or like you're saying, is it the dense? The VLDL are the ones we need to be worried about. So people can get gradient testing, cholesterol gradient testing, to see more about the particles, instead of just, this is your number, you need to get on a statin, because they're so horribly overprescribed. And so, the side effects far outweigh any benefit, I believe.
And also, sugar, people will talk about the effects of that on the brain. And I think one of the simple studies that, was it Max Lagervier?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. But anyways, they did a word cognitive test. Yeah. Where they sat there and they said, hey, how many words can you remember before sugar? Yes. And then after sugar, they lost 20%. Right?
Oh my gosh.
That freaked me out.
Yes. It does. Yeah. Because I used to consume the sugar and the refined carbohydrates, and the next day I'm like, I can't remember words. I can't remember things. Well, what? No, it's not dementia. Yeah. It's sugar.
Well, I think sugar perpetuates drug and alcohol cravings. And unfortunately, we go into, any AA meeting, you're going to find Snicker bars on the table, or, a big thing of sugar to pour into your coffee. And so addicts are not really educated with sugar can lead you into a relapse cycle, similarly, because alcohol is a lot of sugar, as it metabolizes. So I think it's very important for people with addictions to get off of this and really to adopt a low carb diet. And what you're saying makes so much sense. Eating what God, it's not that difficult, right?
Right.
You guys are growing food. It's not rocket. Don't eat processed stuff in bags and boxes with 500 ingredients.
So fasting. Can we talk about fasting? Because that's biblical.
I love it.
And that's on there. Tell us what your thoughts on fasting.
Okay, I really enjoy intermittent fasting. Okay, so last night after dinner, 7 o'clock, I go until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. 15 hours of not eating is what I like to do. And they have found with studies that somebody who has dementia is that they need at least 12 hours of not eating overnight. Yeah. If you are not going 12 hours of fasting, that is a contributing factor to getting dementia.
Don't they call that the third diabetes? Or
Yes.
there's some term for Alzheimer's,
Yes,
right?
yes, for dementia. And
Or-
Alzheimer's is
okay.
one of the dementia diseases.
Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, we're both huge advocates for intermittent fasting, and we're so conditioned in our culture. Like, even when I was doing treatment, when I was facilitating groups, I'd have a dietitian come in once a month, I think, to talk to the clients, and she would teach them about like eating every 2 to 3 hours and really discourage fasting. And I was always just like, oh my gosh, because we're told, oh, you need to keep your metabolism going, but we never get the chance to have autophagy or getting cells turning over or cleansing our system. We don't need to be eating constantly, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's I'm going to be discussing that in my newest book, 12 Ways to Age Gracefully. And it is about that, our cells get old, and so we need to have like little Pac-Man come and clean up our cells. Well, if we are always eating and having to digest food, our body doesn't get to do that. So when we go on intermittent fasting and we go 12 to 15 hours without eating, our body can go up and clean the cells that are going to become cancer or whatever, and get rid of them and our aged cells. It makes us look younger, feel better. So
the other thing, we talked about probiotics earlier in the show, and you're always seeing a new marketing ploy. They're like 95% of them are bad and are not real or dead, or they show you micro. So again, people don't want to be conned anymore. They want to take. What do you recommend for probiotics? Is there a brand? Is there a way? Like, I don't know if I'm getting my probiotics from my raw milk and everything else out there, but I call store-bought milk dead milk.
Yes, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Yes.
Completely. It's funny. They were showing, it was somebody who was an anti-milk company, and they were like, mother's milk, right? And they show processed milk. Well, you put it to 300 degrees and you killed everything in it. So of course it looks that way, But what probiotics is there certain types that you'd recommend? Because people don't, they try it and it doesn't have an effect, and they don't know if they're taking dead stuff, and there's 1,000,001 brands, and you don't know if this need to be refrigerated or not. And do you have any advice?
This is such a great question. It really is, because we need to gain knowledge. It's like in my 7 Steps book, it's like number 2 is gaining knowledge. Number 1 is deciding. So, we want to get a balanced microbiome. So to do that, we should take probiotics. We can get probiotics via a supplement. We can get it via sauerkraut or kimchi. You need both. Okay, only if most people don't like sauerkraut or kimchi, just a tablespoon once or twice a week is enough. And stay away from kombucha. Kombucha has a wild strain of yeast in it.
It's so funny but kombucha is the most nutritious drink ever, isn't it? I mean, you go in the health food store and there's it's all over the place, the whole rainbow.
Nope. Do not consume kombucha. That is setting us up for its sugar, and it has some probiotics, but it also has the yeast, the candida. So what I do for my probiotic is I go to a reputable health food store. I go to the refrigerated section and I buy one, but I make sure that there's 10 different microorganisms on the back.
10 strains?
10 strains.
Yep.
10 strains of the probiotics. I finish that after, 30 to 60 days. I bring the bottle back with me to the health food store. I grab a different bottle. It has at least 10 strains.
Are they the same strains?
No.
Okay, great.
No, they have to be, you'll probably get 7 out of the 10 different. You get that bottle. Okay. And then you just keep doing that. And then you take the sauerkraut or the kimchi, and after months, your microbiome gets rebalanced. It helps you to not crave sugar and refined carbohydrates. It makes the transition easier.
Sure.
That's great.
What about cleanses?
Yeah, cleanses are fine. I've done cleanses before.
Well, fasting kind of does it on its own.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
You don't need to waste your money on. What about collagen? So we hear all about collagen. Is there?
I've been taking it. Do I look 12?
You look great. I'm taking it too, and I'm like, gosh, I've seen I don't know. Maybe it's doing things internally I'm not seeing, or I need to do it longer.
So I, again, believe in God's food. So if
Yeah.
we're going to have collagen, then get your chicken,
Bone
get your
broth.
meat,
That's
make
the-
your homemade bone broth,
Yes.
you know, make a big batch, put it in the freezer. And I put stuff in glass. I don't
Everything in
store
plastic.
stuff in
Yeah,
plastic.
that's once you start going down this rabbit hole,
Yes.
your world just opens
And your
up.
cookware.
Yeah, your
right?
cookware and everything.
Stainless
Stainless steel.
Yes.
Stainless steel, glass.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, we're doing a lot. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
So then you can, add that bone broth that you make, because you made a big batch, because it takes a long time to make it.
Yeah.
But you just boil it and simmer it for 12,
We're
18,
getting
however
ready to
long.
have beef, homemade beef bone broth soon. I can't wait.
Oh,
to have it.
yeah.
And beef tallow. I can't wait. Like, that's the great thing on the farm is, we have our butter, our grass-fed butter that we have, but now
Yes.
we're getting real lard, real beef tallow, all these things. And we've gotten rid of all of our bad seed oils. It's olive oil or that. That's
Yes.
it, all we have in our house. So it's been pretty
Ooh.
great.
I saw a sparkly jacket. over there.
Wonderful.
What would
Yeah.
you say, a lot of our audience are people struggling with addictions, or they have kids, adult kids, spouses. So this can be overwhelming for people if they haven't done anything with their health, or they're really in a bad place. How would you suggest people get going, or some simple steps to get started on the road to a good diet?
The first step is to decide. And that's the
That's
hardest
good.
step of all. Decide. Pray. Ask God to come along with you to
That's good.
to transition and go on this journey. Pick out some Bible verses that relate to you. Post them where you need to. Get rid of the junk in your refrigerator, in your pantry. Get rid of it. And with family members, you can't make them change, but you can tell them what you're doing, and you can ask them to respect you.
Yeah. We had to get my in-laws off of margarine.
Oh,
All right, margarine is one of
It's
the
like
worst
plastic.
things on
Oh
the
my
planet.
gosh.
Like, nothing in the wild will eat margarine.
no.
They designed it, I think, to be a food for poultry, and they wouldn't touch it. And I finally got enough literature to get my in-laws off of that. It was like here they were thinking they were doing the best thing ever, and of
It's
course
heart
they're not.
healthy, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, they were just talking about, Tufts or somebody who was just funded by the food industry put out this study saying that like Lucky Charms are better for you than eggs in the new food pair.
Probably General Mills.
It was like crazy. I'm like, how can that even
gosh.
pass the smell? The food coloring dyes in there alone.
Oh,
Lucky
yes.
Charm. Oh, it's fat free. I know the marketing just drives me crazy, like for heart health and organic, or foods. You look at it, it's full of refined carbohydrate and enriched flour and sugar and corn syrup.
Or GMO.
Yeah.
Because with the GMO, that's where they manipulate the seed
Mhm.
so that it's genetically modified. And then 90% of wheat, soy, oats, crops in the U.S. are, have this GMO. And then they go and they spray it with glyphosate,
Wow.
which is the weed killer, and it doesn't hurt the crops. But then when you go ahead and put that on the market, there's a residue. And so the Environmental Working Group, which is a nonprofit out of Washington, D.C., they did a study, and they found that 100% of the oat products that you're talking about that are, been marketed to our children, the granola bars that are not organic, contained some residue of the glyphosate,
Wow.
Yep.
which is cancer causing.
Yes.
So if you're
Can't
consuming
trust it.
wheat, soy, or oats,
Any commodity
or corn,
basically any government commodity,
make sure that it's organic.
yeah.
Farming and trying to farm, GMO free and organic, it is such a challenge.
Is
Yes.
it?
It is
I
such
can
a challenge.
imagine.
It's so expensive. A bag of chicken feed that is organic is like $50, right? Never mind for a cow.
I get mine. It's $40. It's $80 for my 2 bags of organic chicken feed.
Yeah,
And maybe it's that the reason why my daughter doesn't react to it.
Yeah.
that could be it. But it's like when you're doing that at scale, it gets about, now you're thinking of cows and now you're thinking of pigs and you're thinking about all these things. And it just gets so overwhelming. And you're just always trying to find out how is it trying to get in, and as we have more animals born on the farm, we're able to control the contamination levels better. We found something out there called duckweed, which is, people call it pond scum, but it's a 45% protein that grows feet a day. It just lives on the water, and it's absolutely amazing. And it's something we've been able to do that's organic, that is sustainable, great for the water. It doesn't allow out sun to penetrate, so it doesn't grow any algae. It's just phenomenal. So something out there for people to think about.
Yeah. So you were saying being willing. I wasn't sure if you, and getting rid of all the junk. Was there anything else that would help people get into a new healthy eating schedule?
Well, then buy all the beneficial food, and also think about what you're consuming for your beverage.
Oh yeah.
It's fine to go ahead and have 1 or 2 cups of coffee or tea, but God, what did he give us to drink?
Water.
That's what we should drink. And so my daughter, she doesn't really like water. Well, put some, raspberries in it. Don't
put some
lemon.
artificial sweetener or that stuff you can squeeze in there with the dyes and
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Exactly.
Somebody was saying that dragon fruit was a good alternative as a sweetener, and I don't know. I think it was Max was saying that.
Okay.
But that was a liquid that you put in there that's clear. But so now we got to get into water, go down the water.
Brita water filter?
No, well, even Berkey has been finding out that people have been looking at who buy, like if you're a prepper, and I am, the Berkey filters are not filtering out after 100 gallons anywhere near what they're supposed to. So here you are for people who don't have spring water, right? Who they're taking it from the tap, which is fluoride in it, which is now being linked to so many other problems out there. It's got chlorine and all these other things in it. You're buying these filters, you're trying to do the right thing, and even now that is turning out to people are starting to lose credibility in products out there on that. Any thoughts on water and how to get the good stuff?
That is a really hard one. I'm in the process of trying to make up my mind for getting a whole house water system, and it's very confusing. I don't have a solution and answer at this point.
I came from Virginia where I had the most beautiful, amazing mountain spring water. And now I'm going to have to dig a well because, I know I'm over an aquifer. It shouldn't be a problem. But I just cannot. I'm just not trusting these filters to do what they're supposed to do.
I visited France in 2019, and I was way up in the French Alps, and we were staying there at a village of less than 50 people, and they had fresh spring water come into all the different homes. So it was no, public water system.
Wow.
It was the most delicious water.
Yeah.
And then the day we left, we went down into a major city, and I got some water, and it tasted terrible.
Yeah, like straight medicine.
I couldn't believe it.
I grew up on well water, but I'm trying to find a solution to it as well. So let me know when you find out.
Berkey has been, and now I know there's some competitors out there, and I'm trying to endorse anyone, but supposedly their filters can fit inside of Berkey, and they actually filter out at 1,000 gallons, which you go through 100 gallons really quick.
Yeah.
And Berkey lost like 90-something% of its filtration to filter out bad things. So I'm sure it'll go slow. It's really slow as it is, but that's something to do. So where can we see the books?
Yeah,
they're
beautiful books.
Thank you. Nice, a lot of colors.
And I love that you have one for kids as well.
So
where can they find them?
They can find them at my website, susanuneal.com. That's the letter U, Neal. And I also have one on solving the gluten puzzle to help you determine if you're gluten sensitive and whether gluten is affecting you negatively.
All right.
Oh, amazing.
Well, thank you so much.
This has been
We
so
really
good.
enjoyed this. This was such a great time. All right, everyone. God bless you. And we'll be back shortly with our next testimony or story.